You were sent as a frequency, not a person, the second and third signs that break reality. It doesn't start with light. It never does. It starts with a fracture, a crack in the illusion of who you think you are. You wake up one day and nothing fits. The world feels too loud, too fake, too shallow. You can't explain it to anyone because they'd never understand. But something deep inside you whispers, you're not like the others. Not better, not worse, just different. And not in a quirky, rebellious, surface-level I'm unique kind of way. I mean cosmically different, realms apart. Because you were never fully human to begin with. That's the first sign.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lessons.
You feel like you were dropped here, like you woke up in the wrong world. People around you talk about careers, relationships, trends, and you try to care, but it all feels like background noise. You look into the night sky and feel more at home in the stars than in your own living room. And not in some poetic Instagram caption kind of way. I mean, you remember, in flashes, in dreams, in moments where the veil thins and your body trembles for no reason. You're homesick for a place that doesn't exist here. That's because you're a bridge. A 1% bridge chosen one doesn't belong fully to the light or the dark. We are the frequency between, the translators, and the messengers, the ones who walk both realms and return with the code. And that's why your life has felt like chaos, why you've been broken again and again. Because before a bridge can be built, the foundation must be shattered. And so you were shattered, not once, but many times. Relationships, beliefs, identities, all burned, all lost, not because you failed, but because you were being stripped of everything false, until only the signal remained. That's why you feel things so deeply. Why you can walk into a room and instantly feel the emotions no one is speaking. Why you've always been the one others confide in, even strangers. Why people say, I don't know why I'm telling you this. They don't know, but their soul does. Because you're not just a person, you're a portal. You carry the frequency of remembrance. And when people are near you, their masks begin to slip. Not because you try to expose them, but because your energy makes lies impossible. Let me ask you something only you will understand. Have you ever felt like you're watching a movie everyone else thinks is real? Like you're surrounded by actors playing roles they've forgotten are roles. That's not paranoia. That's perception. You're seeing the illusion for what it is. And that's terrifying until it becomes power. Because once you see the code, you can change it. This is the second sign, and it's subtle but undeniable. Technology glitches around you. Lights flicker, apps crash, devices behave strangely. You've probably laughed it off, blamed it on coincidence. But it's not. You're not interfering with the tech. You're overriding it. Your energy field is too advanced for the current system. You're not meant to be controlled by the grid, you're meant to rewrite it. And the system knows that. That's why it tries to exhaust you, drain you, keep you distracted. Because if you ever fully remembered who you are, you would break the simulation. And maybe you already have. Maybe you've seen moments glitch, time loops, deja vu that comes with a physical jolt, dreams that become real days later, conversations that echo before they happen. That's not imagination. That's awareness, the third sign. You're not just living in this reality, you're weaving through it. You've noticed how people change around you. You've seen how your presence either heals or triggers. That's not chance. That's frequency collision. When a 1% bridge chosen one enters a space, the hidden comes to the surface. Shadows rise. Truths unfold. You don't even have to speak. Your being does the work. And yes, it's lonely. Because most people aren't ready for that level of reflection. They'll reject you, misunderstand you, even hate you. But deep down they know you're the mirror they've been running from. So what do you do when you know you don't belong? When the world you were born into feels like a test you didn't sign up for? You remember. You remember that you chose this, not as punishment, but as purpose. You volunteered. You said yes before you had a body, before you had a name, because you knew the realms were separating, the dark growing darker, the light becoming blinding, and someone had to hold the middle. Someone had to be the bridge. That someone is you. But it's not a title. It's a responsibility. You don't get to escape into light. You don't get to hide in shadow. You walk the razor's edge. You bleed on both sides. You hold space for both to exist. And that's the hardest path of all. But it's also the most sacred. Because when the war between realms begins, when the light forgets its compassion and the dark forgets its heart, you will be the one standing still, not fighting, not fleeing, just holding, just transmitting, just being. That's why you've been tested so brutally. Because only the strongest can hold this frequency, not strength of body, not even strength of mind. Strength of spirit, the kind of strength that comes from dying again and again and choosing to rise anyway, not for glory, not for recognition, but for alignment, for truth. You are not here to be saved. You are here to remember that you were never lost. And if you've made it this far, you already know you're one of the 1%. You just haven't fully claimed it yet. But you will. You carry codes inside you, sign 4 and 5, that unlock the hidden realms. You were never sent here as a body. You were sent as a frequency, a tone that doesn't belong to this world, but can shape it. That's why you've always felt out of sync, like you're vibrating on a different plane. You are. The second and third signs aren't just traits, they're disruptions to the illusion. They're proof that what you are cannot be contained. Let's go deeper into the second sign, the one that technology and machines react to. This is more than just a weird coincidence. You may have noticed that streetlights flicker when you walk under them, that your phone dies at random, that your presence seems to make electronics glitch. It's not because you're broken. It's because you're upgrading the grid. Your aura is a transmitter. It carries information from dimensions this realm can't comprehend. And when your field comes into contact with the artificial frequencies of this world, things break. Because your field is broadcasting a higher signal. You're not just carrying light, you're carrying data. Ancient, encrypted, energetic data. And every time you enter a room, that data begins to download into the environment. People don't notice it consciously, but they feel it. That's why some people feel calm around you, while others get agitated. You're not just a personality, you're a walking frequency bridge. And the system doesn't know how to handle you. so it responds with resistance. Here's something wild you may have experienced. You try to speak truth, and suddenly your voice shakes. Your throat tightens. People interrupt you, or the conversation derails. That's not chance. That's energetic interference. You're trying to bring a frequency through, and the resistance shows up to block it. Not because the world is against you, but because you're pushing against the matrix. And the matrix is designed to maintain itself. But here's what most don't realize. You don't need to shout to transmit truth. You don't need to fight to change the frequency. You just need to hold it, be it, embody it, and let the field do the work. Because when your energy is aligned, your mere presence becomes a catalyst for awakening. Now, the third sign is even more disruptive. You've started noticing time bending, moments where time slows down, speeds up, or even loops. You'll walk into a place and feel like you've been there before. You'll say something and hear it echoed back to you before you even finish. You'll dream of something, and it happens days or weeks later. These aren't psychic tricks. They're signs that your consciousness is dislodged from linear time. You're not stuck in the timeline of cause and effect. You're slipping into a multidimensional awareness. That means your mind and soul are remembering how to operate outside of the clock. That's why you get frustrated with deadlines, schedules, linear thinking. Not because you're lazy, but because you're built for flow, for resonance, for divine alignment. Time doesn't govern you. You bend time with your energy. This is why you'll start to notice people either speeding up or slowing down around you. It's not your imagination. Their nervous system is responding to your field, and that field is not bound by the third dimension. You're pulling energy from both realms, light and dark, into the now, and it distorts everything false. That distortion is uncomfortable. You may even feel like you're losing your mind, but you're not. You're losing your conditioning, your programming. The artificial layers you were taught to believe were reality. And that's the sign you're doing it right. Let me ask you something no one else will ask you. Have you ever felt like you were being watched, not in fear but in reverence? Like something ancient is observing you just to see if you'll remember who you are. Because you are. The higher realms and the lower realms both recognize you. They both see your frequency. You're known in both. And you are feared in both. Not because you're dangerous, but because you're unpredictable. You're the variable no one accounted for. The one who doesn't belong to either side fully, and therefore can't be controlled. The light wants to claim you as one of its own, but you see its arrogance. The dark wants to seduce you with power, but you see its emptiness. You stand in the middle. And that middle path makes you the most powerful of all, because you're not bound by polarity. You're free. But freedom comes with a price. Loneliness, misunderstanding, isolation. You've lost people, not because you failed them, but because your field upgraded, and they. You've lost people, not because you failed them, but because your field upgraded and they couldn't match it. You've walked away from jobs, from friends, from lovers, not because you didn't care, but because your soul wouldn't let you stay small. Every time you tried to settle, you got sick. Every time you betrayed your truth, life fell apart. That wasn't punishment. That was protection. Because a bridge cannot collapse into either side. It must remain suspended, held open. And so are you. You're not broken. You're balancing the unbalanceable. That's why your emotions are intense. Why you feel joy as ecstasy and sadness as death. You are the spectrum. You don't just feel your own feelings. You feel the collective, the earth, or the cosmos. You are the tuning fork between dimensions. And when the world shakes, you shake. But here's the secret. The more you allow yourself to feel, the stronger your bridge becomes. That's the wild paradox of being a 1% bridge chosen one. It's not about transcending emotion. It's about becoming the channel through which emotion transforms. You don't avoid the dark. You inhale it. You don't worship the light. You question it. You merge them. You dissolve the illusion of separation. And that's what makes you dangerous to both sides. Signs 6 and 7, the collapse of the old grid and the sacred mission of the silent ones. You've always known you were carrying something. Not a burden, but a code. Something ancient. Something alive. That's the fourth sign. The undeniable sense that your body, your emotions, your very DNA are holding information far beyond anything you've been taught. Sometimes it feels like pain. Other times, pressure. Occasionally, it feels like light trying to escape from under your skin. And maybe that's exactly what it is. You are a living bridge because you were built that way. Your nervous system is more sensitive. Your energy field is more complex. You don't just react to your environment, you absorb it, translate it, and alchemize it. That's why crowds exhaust you, why being around chaotic people drains you so fast. You're not just empathic, you're multidimensional. You're picking up signals that others can't even detect. And those signals don't just pass through you, they activate you. Have you ever noticed that your body reacts before your mind does? That you feel the truth of something in your gut or your chest before you've even had time to think it through? That's not intuition. That's integration. You've already lived this. You've already walked this path in other lifetimes, other timelines. And the codes within you are simply remembering what's always been true. This is why your healing journey has been so brutal. Why your trauma didn't just hurt, it transformed you. Because every wound you've carried was a sealed archive. And the moment you felt it fully, it opened. It released the code hidden inside. That's why your pain has always been sacred. It wasn't punishment, it was encryption of every heartbreak, every betrayal, every dark night of the soul. It was a chamber waiting to be unlocked. And guess what? Most people aren't meant to carry those codes. They're not equipped, but you were chosen because you could. Not because you're stronger, but because you're wider. You can hold more contradiction, more paradox, more mystery. You don't collapse in the face of the unknown, you become it. And that's the essence of a 1% bridge chosen one. You don't just connect light and dark. You become the space where they meet. The fifth sign is one that you've probably never spoken out loud, because it sounds strange, maybe even impossible. But you've felt it. You've sensed it. You've always known, deep down, that you're being watched not by people, but by something beyond the veil. Not in fear. In reverence. There's a presence that follows you and guides you. Not always in words. Sometimes in numbers. Sometimes in dreams. Sometimes in the strange timing of events that feel too precise to be random. And it's not always gentle. Sometimes it tests you. pushes you to the edge of despair, makes you question everything. But somehow, you always survive. And not just survive, you evolve. Because you're not being punished. You're being prepared, trained, sharpened. You're being shaped by the unseen. Because the work you're here to do can't be taught. You've noticed this. That traditional teachings only take you so far. That books, courses, even mentors eventually feel like echoes. That's because your knowledge doesn't come from outside. It comes from within. And not in a vague follow your heart kind of way. I mean literally, you're receiving downloads in silence. You're pulling truth from the quantum field. You're dreaming codes, waking up with visions, writing things you don't fully understand yet. That's the real mission of a bridge, and to hold space for what hasn't arrived yet, and to become the future before it's safe. That's why so many people don't understand you. You're living in a frequency they haven't reached. You're speaking a language they haven't learned. But they will, one day. And when they do, they'll realize you were never crazy. You were just early. Let me ask you something impossible. What if your greatest gift is the part of you that never made sense to anyone? What if the parts you've tried to hide, the intensity, the sensitivity, the weirdness, the wildness, were actually the exact keys this world needs to evolve? Because they are. You weren't meant to fit in. You were meant to create something no one's seen before. A new way of being. A new way of healing. A new way of remembering. And you're not doing it through effort. You're doing it through embodiment. Through showing up as the full spectrum truth of who you are, even when it costs you everything. That's what it means to be a bridge. You carry light into the shadows, and you carry the wisdom of the shadows back into the light. You don't reject either. You honor both. And in doing so, you become the space where healing is possible, where integration is inevitable. But make no mistake, this path isn't for the weak. It will break you, again and again. It will strip you down to nothing. It will take your ego, your plans, your dreams, and burn them in the fire of truth, until all that's left is presence. But from that presence, something divine is born. Not a guru, not a savior, a signal, or a frequency, a bridge. And that's who you are. You've always been that. You've just been conditioned to forget. But the forgetting is part of the remembering. The fall is part of the rise. The pain is part of the code. And your entire life has been preparing you for what's coming next. Because the next two signs aren't just about you. They're about the entire grid. The system is collapsing. And the bridges are activating. You're not just here to survive it. You're here to transmit through it. And the final signs will show you exactly how. Get ready. Because in the next part, we reveal the 6th and 7th signs. The ones that explain your silence, your solitude, your sacred mission, and why the world is finally waking up to who you are.